English Short Stories. Village Life in India. India is still an agricultural country. 90% of all its inhabitants are farmers. By Indian law, land is held by the sons of the family, among whom it is divided equally. In a country of large families, this means that there is now very little land for each son. Thus, in the great farming district known as the Punjab, the average size of a farm is only 5 acres, 2 hectares. Nearly all farmers work hard on their farms to be able to live. No doubt much more could be got from the soil, but their methods of farming are old and very poor. In many parts of the country special farms and agricultural institutions have been started to help the farmers, but their work is made extremely difficult, because most farmers cannot even read or write. Down through history, the farmers have depended upon the rainy season. If the monsoon did not come when expected, it meant catastrophe and untold suffering to the farmer. Very early in the history of India, it was necessary for the farmers to make arrangements to get the necessary water. They were never very successful until during the last 50 years, when many large dams have been built to improve the conditions of the farmers. There are enormous numbers of cattle. It is said that in all India there are more than 152 million. Compared with European cows, they give very little milk, only about 4 pints a day, 2.5 liters. Throughout India, there are some 700,000 villages, and each village more or less looks after its own affairs. Every village has its families of farmers, whose only work is to look after the soil. Each village has its own headman and its own watchman. As the most important man in the village, the headman is responsible for the collection of land taxes, out of which he receives 5%. The headman chooses his own watchman, who is a sort of a policeman. The watchman is the link between the government and the headman. He, too, is paid by the villagers at the rate of 4 pence per family per annum, which he has to collect himself. There are also other people in the villages who are not farmers. There is the blacksmith for sharpening the plough, making the locks, and repairing the articles used in the kitchen. There is the carpenter to make any wooden articles necessary. There is the potter who makes pots for the kitchen, and then there is the washerman. The washerman, however, does not do much washing. His chief job is to dye the cloth, generally made in the village itself, from which the women make the wedding cloth, covers for their beds, etc. Each village has its own minstrel. The duty of a minstrel in the old days was to sing and play for his master, some rich landowner. The duty of an Indian minstrel is now to sing at marriages and other important events in the life of the village, and to remember by heart everything connected with the past life of the leading families of the village. He also takes all invitations to marriages and news of birth and death to relatives in other villages. All these positions are hereditary and go from father to son. The carpenter's son will be a carpenter, the minstrel's son a minstrel. Here we see how little the life of India changes. In each village there is yet another person who must be mentioned, and who is perhaps more important than any other. He is the banya, the man to whom the villagers go to borrow money. He is the man who makes it possible for the life of the village to continue. He is usually the shopkeeper as well. The whole existence of Indian agriculture depends upon him. From the money lender the farmer borrows money to buy cattle and seeds for his fields. In most cases, all that the farmer produces finds its way into the money lender's shop. For the rest of the year he will have to depend upon the money he has borrowed to buy everything he needs, even salt for his food and oil for his lamps. Marriages and death cost money too. People who come from distant villages often stay the night and have to be fed. All this is paid for with money borrowed from the moneylender. The moneylender wants a very high rate of interest. The farmers pay more to the moneylender in interest than they pay to the government in taxes. If it happens that a farmer's bullock dies, or, as is often the case, that it is stolen from him during the time when the ploughing is being done, he is sure to lose the whole year's crop of wheat, cotton, etc., unless the moneylender will let him have money to buy another. Most of the provinces have now started special banks for lending money to farmers. The rate of interest charged by them is only 12%, but they have not yet succeeded in taking the place of the moneylender. Coins are not in common use in the villages. Even when the women go shopping, they take with them wheat and cotton for their payments. Before the days of British administration in India, the land tax could be paid with wheat, cotton, etc., but the British arranged for it to be paid in cash, on dates fixed beforehand. This has meant that the farmer has very often had to go to the moneylender to get the cash. The amount of the land tax is arranged every 40 years, and the farmer knows exactly what he will have to pay for the whole of that time. With farmers who cannot read or write, the European system of income tax would be almost impossible. The people in the villages eat very simple food, consisting of grain of different kinds and vegetables, with milk and butter too. If they have cows, milk is not usually sold in the villages. There is a saying in India that the farmer will sell neither his son nor the milk of his cow. As there are many families without a cow, they have to go without milk and whatever may be made from milk. The standard of life in India is very low compared with life in England. For example, the ordinary Englishman earns 20 times as much as an Indian. Most villagers, however, are happy and satisfied. They are peaceful and do not often break the law. The general good behavior of Indian villagers is possibly a result of the deep religious feeling that is such an important part of Indian life. Each village has its own particular house of worship. The Mohammedans have the mosques, and the Hindus the temples. The priests are usually poor and depend upon what the villagers may give them, but they give the people some knowledge of the simple things connected with their religion. There is a world of difference between the two religions, Mohammedan and Hindu. In the big cities of India, there is frequently trouble between the Mohammedans and the Hindus, with shedding of blood and loss of life. But in the villages, people are usually more peaceful. The village women remain at home except when they go to fetch water, bread, or grain. But the men come together in the evenings in the village meeting places to smoke and exchange news. The only time the women of a village meet for a definite purpose is when a marriage takes place. Then all the young girls of the village and the country around get together in the house of the bride, singing and making beautiful music until the late hours of the evening. Marriages usually take place in spring or summer, if the guests have to remain 2 nights, and in winter, when it's too cold, they would have to be given beds and bedclothes, which the villagers cannot afford. Rich people travel with their own bedclothes. The villagers nearly all live in houses made of mud with hardly any windows or doors, so that the air inside them is very bad. The villagers cook, eat, and sleep in the same room. The average village consists of a group of mud houses separated by dusty and narrow streets. Every morning and every evening, the villages are filled with dust from the cattle as they move in and out. In some ways, nature has been very kind to India. There is much sunshine. For 6 months in the year, people can sleep out of doors and need very few clothes. With the increasing use of new methods in agriculture, there is every hope that the life of the Indian villager can be made much better in the years that are to come.